Hey everyone, and welcome to today's video. Today we are doing a PvP tier list. This is mainly going to focus on arena offense and RTA. I'll throw in some items here for, arena defense or guild versus guild, but for the main points of this, we're going to be talking about arena offense and RTA. There's a lot of little niche things that you can do here and there, like cutesy things on arena offense in guild versus guild, but that is not what we're gonna do today. That would be way too mundane. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna stick to higher end arena picks, the heroes that are useful in those areas, and just see where the list takes us. Now, I do want to mention this is just my opinion. Yes, I'm going to be wrong about something. Some people are going to disagree. And, spirited conversation and discussion, always welcome. So if you guys think I've made some wrong decision or you disagree, feel free to put it in the comments. Something that I will not tolerate, though, is people being really nasty and saying I'm an idiot. Please do not do that. Again, just my opinion. My opinion can be wrong based on your opinion, but it is also just your opinion. Okay, so with that being said, let's first talk into the grading scale here. Okay, so we have 6 different grades. We have S, A, B, C, D, and F. Okay, and the way that I've categorized this is S is a first pick hero. There's 1 to 2 or even 0 counters to this hero. It's always an easy first pick, and there's really no wrong way to pick that hero. For the A picks, great first pick hero, but they could have a couple different available counters. B rating, strong complementary pick to either your first pick or to really go after your opponent's strategies with their first pick or first 2 picks. The C grade is kind of like a direct counter pick. It doesn't really have anything else to do with the rest of your team or your opponent's team, but you are using it to pick one specific hero out on your enemy's team that is going to be the biggest problem for you. D is kind of similar. It's like a niche counter pick where it could work, it couldn't work. If you end up banning the hero that you picked your niche counter pick on because your opponent picks something better, it could be worthless. But in the end, that hero is there for the niche counter. And then Fs are just completely useless. Most of those heroes are going to fall into the, PvE category and whatnot. So I will say I'm doing this on the fly. This is just, off the cuff thinking. I think some of it's going to be pretty straightforward for me and for you. But, maybe we'll disagree on a couple things and go from there. So strap in. It's probably going to be a long one, but I haven't done one of those long form videos in a while, so the people that really enjoy that, I guess you're going to be happy. Okay, let's get started. All right, so starting off with Abaddon, he is clearly an F. He is a really good PvE character. I will plan on making a couple tier lists for PvE. I'm going to have to break them out into dungeons, Rift of Chaos, Guild versus Environment, stuff like that, but we'll talk about that later. So he is an F. Along with Ackerley, also an F. Just an amazing PvE character, but not really great for PvP. So Adeline, one of the newer LD additions, she's an A. She is a really solid first pick, but she does have some counters. Alicia, a very, very common pick in RTA, just completely craps all over her. There are a couple other, nice counter picks to her. Oderic is somebody that is countered by her, but also counters her if she is the highest attack hero, because she can't really gain bonus turns or anything like that. So that's another, downside to her. Also, whenever she is in her initial state, she can be crowd controlled. So any kind of stun, any kind of morph ability by like Cordelia or something like that can definitely be an issue. And she also gets countered by an epic that we'll be talking about here that's going to be a niche counter pick. All right, next up is Alicia. So Alicia, I'm actually going to put in the D category. She has some interesting interactions, but she's kind of a niche pick. Now, one of the higher end arena players actually uses Alicia, and you see this a lot in Guild versus Guild as well, with Dark Ophelia. So Dark Ophelia has that special trait where she can push people to the back of the turn order if someone uses their ultimate or special ability, and it goes for either side. Now, Alicia, whenever the round starts, she actually puts stealth on everybody and defense up on the highest health person. And what that does is it counts as a special ability. So even if you try and outspeed someone like Dark Ophelia, you have Alicia to come in, do the special, and push their fastest hero to the back of the turn order. So she's a really niche pick, but she pairs very well with Dark Ophelia. She does work in other areas, like if you don't want specific people to be targeted, it's kind of neat, but she is kind of a niche pick right now. I do have high hopes for her, so maybe she ends up moving further up the tier list, you know, as the game progresses, but as of now, I think she is a decent kind of niche pick, and we'll just leave it at that. So next is Adet. So Adet had potential to be pretty good, especially at A5, because she could remove some kind of buff from people and put a negative effect on them. On top of that, you know, she does put up a lot of debuffs, but that can actually be a bad thing for some heroes nowadays. You know, you have people like Karma, where Adet actually has some stunning ability, and Karma directly counters her, but sadly, her trait only removes one positive effect. If it was all positive effects, or one positive effect on each person, or something like that, she'd be much stronger. But sadly, with that, she's kind of just a PvE character, and even a bad PvE character at that, so she's definitely an F. So Alicia is a top tier hero right now. She does have some counters, but to be honest, she's probably one of the strongest red, green, blue heroes out there, maybe even the best. It's hard to say, it's hard to categorize the best red, green, blue character because they have counters based on their element, but she has the ability to one-shot really strong water heroes. She has the ability to outspeed some really fast red, green, blue characters, and with the addition of the newest hero in Guan Yu, she's a direct counter to him as well, especially if you speed tune your team the right way. She can actually go in and take him out before he has the ability to take out one of your faster light and dark characters. So Alicia is definitely an A pick for sure. She's a great first pick. She does have her counters, but obviously she's really good against most of the meta, especially against Adeline, who's a very strong character. So next up we have Elise. I also think Elise is an A pick. She does have her counters, you know, she does have Alicia, she does have Fire Melissa, which are definitely detrimental to her, but she is very, very fast as well. She's very similar to Alicia. She also has different ways to be built. You can build her in full Raider to make her go very fast. You can have her in Dragon Scale as well to be a little more of a tankier option that still has a decent amount of speed. But one of her crowning achievements is she has a really unique ability to take out any of the problem heroes, you know, for your team on her ultimate ability. Knocks them out for 2 rounds, especially if you play it right. And then on top of that, she has the ability to do true damage based on max health, which there are a lot of really tanky light and dark heroes. And she has the ability to have an unresistible stun, which is pretty strong against some heroes that have high resist. So Elise is a very strong pick, and I definitely think she's worthy of the A spot. So next up is Aphrodite. So Aphrodite used to actually be crazy good, but she was so good that they had to nerf her because she was better than most LDs. She would counterattack every time somebody did some kind of critical damage on her, and they since removed that and put it down to once per turn or once per round. And yeah, I mean, that has kind of crippled her. I have seen some people use her, and if she goes unchecked, she can be a bit of an issue, but she is definitely more of a niche pick. I wouldn't say she's very strong, but there are some possibilities for her where she's definitely not an F. I think if you have her fully booked, Ascended 5, she does have some application, but not a super strong pick. So next we have Arlo. Arlo is just a really good PvE character, no use in PvP. So Ashlyn. Ashlyn is still somewhat strong, but there are more and more counters to her from, each way you want to build her. If you want to build her just, as a type of hero that does a lot of damage on her light side, with her AoE and her health sparks, there's just too many fast fire heroes that can deal with an Ashlyn that is kind of squishy. And then on the other side, where she would be more of a support hero with a 2-turn stun, nowadays you have, people like Karma, you have people like Jocasta that end up cleansing the stun. You have immunity set out now that really hurts that side of her. She's still strong, and there are ways for her to just completely take over a game, especially if she goes unchecked. If you have, a lot of water heroes, or you have a tanky team that doesn't really have any kind of cleanse, she can definitely take over the game. So she's still an okay pick, but I would say that she's definitely towards, the bottom end of pick orders nowadays. So next up we have Atara. So I think Atara is a nice solid B pick. She's a good complementary pick, to your team if you're going more on the tankier side, or if you're trying to mitigate some of these speedster heroes that can one-shot people if they don't have, some kind of additional bulk. Atara is actually one of the more decent picks against Guan Yu. She helps some of your squishier light and dark fast heroes like Desdemona or Dark Ophelia survive. So she's a pretty good pick there. She does have, an okay amount of counters. Alicia can one-shot her. Elise can definitely deal with her pretty easily. On top of that, you have people like Jerome, who just, make a fool out of her. So she is a strong pick for sure, but she has a decent amount of counters as well. So I think B is definitely the right range for her. So Aubrey. Aubrey is just really bad. The bonus turn and stuff like that can actually be a downside. The no positive effects would be good, but she is just not fast enough, or he, I don't know what it is. But Aubrey definitely needs a buff. The masteries and the ascensions are definitely not working for this hero, and pulling it feels real bad. On top of that, the immunity set coming out and removing the ability for the no positive effects is definitely a downside. Actually, we'll put it as D. I wouldn't say it's a complete F, but it's real darn close. So we'll put Aubrey at D. Bachelor is just a PvE character. Badmar, this is another nice B pick, I think. Badmar does really well against any kind of AoE damage dealer. It's really nice against Light Nick, which is a pretty strong character. Still pretty decent against other heroes as well, like Shark Solandre. Badmar can remove Shark Solandre's max HP buffs. On top of that, he does have a unresistible no positive effects, which is pretty nice against the Nicks, Light Nick and Dark Nick. On top of that, he also has the ability to put defense down 2 on people, which can be really good. So he adds, more of a tankier status to your team. He's also a really nice counter pick to Dark Ophelia, because she does a lot of AoE damage and he keeps your team healthy. So really nice pick. I pick Badmar a decent chunk of the time. He's also really strong against certain teams in Guild versus Guild as well. So really nice pick at B. So next up is Balberith. I actually think Balberith has so much potential. He just needs like 1 or 2 things changed in his kit. He needs some kind of defense pierce or increase to his multipliers, but there's a lot of good green heroes running around, and his revive ability is really unique and cool. But for now, he is an F. But 1 or 2 tweaks to him, and I actually think that he has the potential to be really strong and a cool pick in RTA. But for now, sadly, he is useless. So Barclay has the potential to be okay with some of the good bleed. heroes that actually work in RTA. But for now, he is mainly just a PvE hero, and that's where he's staying, in the F section. So Bella as well can be decent, but the problem is the people that she could possibly counter are all in a negative element, as she is, like Nero and Atara. I will say that she probably has the potential to one-shot a Zoltan, but I think she might need to be booked, and I don't think you should be booking Bella. She is a PvE hero for Tulpa, and while Tulpa is still a bad dungeon, there is some merit to farm it nowadays because of the elemental set, but still, she is just a PvE hero. Blackhorn, same thing, just another PvE hero. Shouldn't really be looking at him in arena. Bulin is okay, but I just don't think she has enough going on. She is more of a PvE hero. She probably is an okay pick on the lower ends of arena, just as an AoE damage dealer. It's actually surprising how many heroes are single target and not AoE. I don't know what the game is planning on doing with addressing that, but yeah, Bulin for now is still just a PvE hero. So next we have Brand. So Brand, I think, can be an okay pick. The caveat is he probably needs to be fully booked and probably max ascension, like A6. But he is a very old hero, so the likelihood of someone having him at multiple ascensions is probably pretty high. But his shield is actually pretty nice. There is a high-end arena player named Yuji Roth who used to use Brand fully booked, and I would have to ban Brand. He was just that good. He was paired with Atara and Nero, and he was kind of a menace. But nowadays, there are just so many busted characters that I think he's still probably okay. But he is definitely going to be a niche pick, only with some kind of defense style of heroes, whether it's with Naya, Nero, Atara, Zoltan, things like that, where he can add some bulk, nice cleanses, and definitely some damage output with his buffs with attack up and defense up. But yeah, he's probably just very, very niche. So Brand the Brilliant, we all know Xenofex, who uses Brand the Brilliant. I think this hero is pretty good. I would dare to say if he ever gets A2 or A3, I'm sure he can be quite strong. There are some heroes that can definitely one-shot him. I don't know many heroes that can one-shot Xenofex's Brand the Brilliant, and he is a ban sometimes when facing him. But I would say he is definitely more of a mid-tier pick. Definitely still okay, but I think he needs multiple ascensions to really be super strong. So Corrupt Aurak, I think, is also a C. He did get a recent buff where his silence is unremovable. Now, it can still be resisted, which is kind of weird, but it is unremovable. He also has, that damage at the beginning of the round, which is based on true damage. And on top of that, he has the ability to stun people, where most people put the Rebel set on him. He's definitely more of a counter pick. He does get countered pretty hard by somebody like Karma, but he's still pretty nice, to deal with some of these speedier light and dark heroes. For sure, add some RNG in there. It's never a bad thing. But again, if you're trying to win games where you're hoping for RNG, it's not a really great strategy, but he can be a decent pick from time to time. So he's definitely a C pick for sure. So Ciara, I actually think Ciara is pretty good, but it's going to be a very niche pick. You're going to be using some kind of speedy heroes going up against more speedy glass cannon heroes. So you're not going to pick her a whole lot. There are a lot of green heroes in the meta currently. But she is a nice counter pick to, heroes like Alicia, to somebody like Rosalie, things like that. So Ciara shouldn't be slept on. She is an okay pick from time to time, but it's going to be very, very unusual. But she is definitely not an F. So Cordelia. Now, this is a tough one because I definitely want to... if she goes unchecked, she can just completely take over a game, but she does have a decent amount of counters nowadays. With that being said, we probably still put her in A because she is one of the more common picks in high-end RTA. She's not a very good, defense character, but in guild versus guild and in arena offense, she is a pretty nice counter to Oderic. So that definitely needs to be mentioned. Anybody who does bonus turns, gets stats at the beginning, instantly morph by Cordelia. Really cool character for the red, green, blue heroes for sure. But she does have her counters nowadays, which I think is needed. She was a complete menace, but since the introduction of Karma, with the addition of, Royce, Kelowna, and then on top of that you have like Fire Melissa and things like that, she's definitely still a really strong hero, and if she goes unchecked, she will take over the game. But she has enough counters nowadays where, before she was probably in the S tier, she's more in the A tier, maybe borderline B. So Crazed Urzag is another hero that I think is probably a decent pick. If you have a lot of heroes taking a lot of bonus turns, if he's Ascended 2, he also gets the ability to be run in Dragon Scale and be a really tanky hero. But, he does need a lot of support, and then he also needs some multiple ascensions. So I think he's more of a build around niche pick, and we'll just leave it at that. So he's definitely a D. So Dark Ophelia is actually our first S that we will mention. Her trait is just completely nuts. Her ultimate is also very, very strong if they don't have some kind of counter pick. Yeah, just one of the more unfair heroes in the game. I really dislike heroes like this, but I mean, you can't really beat around the bush. She is one of those heroes that if you pick her automatically, it's never going to be bad. Guan Yu actually is a really nice counter pick to her, but there are ways to get around Guan Yu, like I said with Alicia. You could also just ban Guan Yu, and then if somebody doesn't have a check to Dark Ophelia, you could be in trouble. So Divine Yolanda is definitely an A pick. She is a really nice first pick hero, but she does get directly countered by Guan Yu. Now she's Ascended 2, Guan Yu becomes way worse on her, but at the same time, there are plenty of heroes that can really kind of chip her down. Vengeful Hassle with his bonus attacks is kind of a menace. On top of that, her S2 to give people, the crit resistance and invincible isn't as strong anymore because of heroes like Cordelia and Alicia being pretty prevalent in the meta. But still really, really strong first pick for sure. But she does have her counters, and, some of the heroes in the S tier are definitely better picks than her. So there is some debate that Darcy could have some potential, but she needs a 5 and she needs full books, and I don't know how many people actually want to do that. With the prevalence of more and more green heroes in the meta, I think her value or her stock does rise a little bit, but it does remain to be seen how viable she could actually be even when she's Ascended 5 in full book, so we're going to keep her in the D range. So Dark Dragon Esrina, I really want to put her in F, but she does have one or two minor applications in the meta. She can be a counter to Adeline, she can be a counter to the Light Twin, but overall she is just way too squishy. Her kit isn't very good, and she definitely belongs in the D tier, borderline F. So Desdemona is another one of the S's. Now, I've had a debate recently with one of my guild members on this. He argues that Karma has really dropped her, and then on top of that with Guan Yu. I don't think Karma is a direct counter to Desdemona. I kind of think that it's a trade. It's a one-for-one kind of thing. But with that being said, I think Desdemona has 2 to 3 counters, like legit counters, and I think that's Guan Yu and Jocasta. I don't think Karma is a direct counter to her. So if Desdemona gets through and you only have like one hero that counters her, or even with that one hero, she can still kind of take over the game. And I still believe that she belongs in the S tier. She is one of the fastest characters in the game. Her, Dark Ophelia are the two fastest, I believe. I think there's one other hero that's just as fast, but the glyphs and the ascensions or whatever really work against them. But yeah, I think Desdemona is definitely worthy of the S tier. So Desmond, widely known as the worst hero in the entire game, both in PvE and PvP, he probably sits at a hard F in both categories, which is really sad. So Dark Nick, I think, is a pretty strong character if picked in the right setting, but at the same time, he does have plenty of counters. He has people that can put no positive effects upon him. There's multiple characters that can do multiple attacks on him and really chip away at his invincibility. On top of that, the unhealable, can work against him from time to time with putting up that negative effect, with like SSA and things like that. But again, he's another hero that if he's Ascension 2 and he can't be controlled or something like that, he ends up being a really nice, strong counter pick to some of these more flimsy offenses that go straight for attack. So Dark Nick, I think, is a pretty solid pick at C. So Donovan, I think, probably has some potential, but right now, there's not enough people that are brave enough to use Donovan at, Ascension 5 and full booked. So for now, I think I'm just going to have to keep him at F. So Doomweaver Valeria is an A pick for sure. Heroes like this kind of annoy me because she can do absolutely nothing, right? She can just sit there, she can never get a turn, and if she's A2, she can wipe your entire team just by being on the field. And I think that is just a really poorly designed hero. Like, it's so dumb to have a hero do nothing but still win you the game. It's like a brain dead pick, and I don't know, like heroes like this, sadly, in my opinion, don't really deserve to be made. But with that being said, she is strong. You have to find ways to kill the team around her before she gets to go on her main turn. And then there's times where even if she goes at the end of the round, she's dealing 12,000 damage, 13,000 damage to somebody. And that can't go unnoticed. So she's definitely an A pick. She can be a bad first pick from time to time if she doesn't have people around her that prolong her being in her air raid state, or she's doing damage at the end of the round, with real chunky heroes, like the Nyx that have Invincible or Vengeful Hassle that's hard to kill, things like that. Elune. This is another hero that is really close to Desmond, as widely being known as one of the worst characters in the game. No one understands how her kit works. She was the first Matrix hero, and she is one of the worst designed heroes to come out in Ace, and Ace should honestly be ashamed of this one. Next up is Aaron. Aaron is a really great PvE hero. It's a bummer that he was a limited time hero for people coming in after the Attack on Titan event, but they have recently made a new legendary hero, so hopefully people can get Maeve and utilize her in PvE. All right, Evelyn Firston, I think, is an okay pick as well from a tankier side. She also pairs fairly nicely with Guan Yu, but it is going to be an extremely niche pick for sure. I would not take her highly in RTA, very limited use. Avera, definitely an F, not even really good in PvE. So Fahim, I actually think, has some decent potential. I think he can be a really nice, solid C pick. If he is Ascended 5, he gets control immunity for 2 turns, so you're not going to have to deal with people like Desdemona, you're not going to have to deal with Anamaros, things like that. And on top of that, he also gets invincible, so that means that he can't be one-shot by people like Alicia, he can't be one-shot by Fire Melisa. So I think he does have some potential there. Putting him in at C, is probably a little bold. We'll put him at D. But I'm really interested to see what he can do. And on top of that, he's really, really strong in PvE. So Fiona, I think, had a place before in the meta, but I really don't think she's that good. I'm sure this one is maybe one of those picks or ratings that people are going to have an issue with, but I don't think she's really viable. Florence is a hero that I think can be solid, against some tankier teams, but she is going to need to be fully booked. And as a PvE character, she's already amazing, and she doesn't need any books at all. So to put books into her to be somewhat viable in PvP is not a really good use of people's resources. So I will put her at D, though, because she does have the ability to really crank out some damage, keep your team healthy, and remove some positive effects on heroes. Like I foresee her being a really strong hero against somebody like Vengeful Hassle, like a nice counter pick, but I don't have her fully booked or anything like that for her to be viable in high-end arena. So Frenric, this is another guy who's just really bad design, an F for sure. Gangello, PvE character. Garnet, Garnet has kind of fallen off a little bit, and we'll shrink this down here. She's still an okay pick, but there are a lot of counters to her with her control effects like sleep and things like that, with Kelowna, Royce. Now you have Karma, you have people like Guan Yu that can outspeed her, you have Fire Melisa that can outspeed her in one shot, you have Divine Yolanda that can ultimate so she doesn't ever res. And on top of that, her masteries don't help her because her top mastery gives her focus instead of speed. So it's really hard for her to outspeed people too. So I'd say that she's not useless for sure, but definitely more of a D pick nowadays than somewhere in the B range where she probably used to be. So yeah, it's a shame that she's fallen that far. So Geralt, I think Geralt is just a product of being too old of a character. He was the first seasonal hero, which was pretty funny. He's the only one that really isn't relevant anymore. He's just an F character. So Gavin, really great in PvE. He might have some setting in PvP, but he is just way too slow to really be good in RTA. Maybe there's some options in arena offense or guild versus guild, but for sure, definitely a PvE character. So Giranol, I think Giranol, if she goes unchecked as well, she can be really, really strong. She pairs great with Halia to kind of jump into her. She is amazing in guild versus guild. She's amazing in arena offense. She's been around for over a year, I think, and people still can't find ways to avoid the Giranol cleave in arena offense. It's pretty funny, but yeah, she is top-notch there, and she's an okay pick in RTA, but she definitely needs some support. But if she goes and she doesn't have some kind of attack down, or you don't have some kind of damage mitigation, she's going to wipe your entire field. So God Fairy is very similar to Dark Dragon Esrina. He or she has the ability, to disrupt some people, whenever they use, some kind of support effect. But overall, he is very, very, very niche pick. Grayson, absolutely terrible character all around, not useful really anywhere. Goobeg, I actually think Goobeg can be an okay pick, but again, he's kind of, he gets slapped with bad masteries. He has crit damage instead of speed on his masteries, so that's kind of the same story with Garnet. If he had more speed, his glyphs also don't help him. I think he has the highest base speed in the game. He could be the fastest character, behind people like Fire Melisa and Jacob. Well, not Jacob, Joseph, who's an elite. But he actually does have some potential now, with Morgan, with Imogen, and then pairing him with Guan Yu as well, who's the new seasonal hero, which is coming up next. So if they fix his masteries a little bit, I think he does have some potential. But as of now, he's really, really, really niche. Just specific teams are going to make him useful. All right, now we got the new seasonal hero, Guan Yu. Guan Yu is very strong. I think he's a very solid pick in PvP. He's really great against, Desdemona, Dark Ophelia, Divine Yolanda, but he definitely has his share of counters. People like Aurea, you have Fire Melisa, you have Alicia, even some Elises can outspeed, things like that. So he's definitely really strong. He's a really great counter pick, but he does have his own counter picks as well. So I think B is a pretty nice range for him, I would say. Very nice addition to the meta. He actually shakes up the meta, even though he's a B pick. It's not as great now to first pick, people like Divine Yolanda, just because of the fact that Guan Yu is there and can one-shot her, which is really interesting. So Halia, I think Halia is another nice pick at B. She has the ability to jump in and give people bonus turns immediately. She does have the speed increase, which is definitely not used as much nowadays, but she is still a really strong pick. She gets countered pretty hard by Cordelia. But on top of that, if Cordelia isn't in the mix, Halia is still a really nice, strong pick. So Haruna, PvE character, and a bad one at that. Holy Armor Virgil, he is another one that has really been power crept. It's funny how many people can just one-shot Holy Armor Virgil. I think if he has multiple ascensions, he can still be pretty viable, but that's really, really crappy to say, especially for a light and dark legendary, needing multiple ascensions to be good. Never nice to hear. So he's definitely more of a niche pick at D. Hydricia, not very good. Definitely a PvE character. And again, not very useful at that. All right, we're going to keep zooming out here. Keep making things smaller. Hector, definitely an F. He's not even good in PvE. Hyam, I think I'm being generous here from time to time with the Ds, but Hyam definitely as niche as you can get with a counter pick here. There are a lot of people that remove positive effects or ignore positive effects, and just her potential to do her ultimate at the end of the turn is really, really low. I guess if your opponent didn't pick the 12 or 13 different heroes that are viable to kind of nullify her, then I guess she can be okay. But she's definitely towards the bottom of the barrel of D, borderlining F. Same with like God Fairy or Dark Dragoness Arena. So Imogen definitely got a boost with the introduction of Guan Yu. I do think that she is still really, really niche. If your opponent ends up, banning the Guan Yu or your really fast hero, Imogen might end up being a bad pick. So she's going to be pretty niche, but she definitely has a boost now with Guan Yu. She actually is going to be amazing in PvE, but from a PvP setting, she's along the lines of Morgan, where if you end up getting the Guan Yu through, she can probably be pretty annoying. But D, I think, is where she lays. So Jerome, I think, is another A. He's fantastic against a lot of the tankier units, even if they don't have high defense per se, like a defensive-based unit like Atara or Nero. I think he can still one-shot some of these heroes. He also has the ability to heal himself back up on the S2. On top of that, if he is A5, he grants himself a bonus turn. So he's a really good counter to people like Royce, who will be brought in to, limit the amount of control that you can do to the opposing team. And that's a really cool niche interaction there. He also grants himself an instant bonus turn as soon as he attacks Nero. So if you let Jerome through with a Nero, you better make sure that you're killing Jerome before he gets to go. If not, you probably lost the game. So Hyun Woo, I wouldn't say is useless in PvP, but I have to keep him as an F right here, because you're most likely not going to be building him for PvP. He's just going to be a PvE hero, and an amazing one at that, but I will keep him at F here. So Kasim, a guy that I was super high on, full book day 5, but nowadays he's just not that good. The problem is a lot of heroes nowadays With the relics, they're way too tanky. You don't have a whole lot of heroes that are just squishy that he can actually even counterattack. You know, somebody like Desdemona or Dark Ophelia, they both limit him. So the Dark Ophelia pushes him to the back of the turn order, which is pretty annoying. And then on top of that, the Desdemona can't be countered. So kind of completely nullifies Kasim. I will say, you know, if some people are using AoE heroes only, which is really rare nowadays, or if, you know, you need a way to counter like a Halia S3 or something like that, he can still be an okay pick, but he has definitely fallen down on the pick order for sure. He's rarely picked anymore. So Jocasta, I think, is a fantastic hero. She's probably in the B to A range. I'll put her in the A range just because she has immunity, which has become more relevant with her S2 because of the introduction of Adeline. She can be really, really fast, and if you have her at A5, she can be really hard to kill for sure. She's one of the few direct counters to Adeline with being able to reduce the turn count on the cooldown for her debuff, as well as Desdemona. I think Jocasta is the true counter to Desdemona, along with Guan Yu, where Karma, again, is kind of like a somewhat counter. But Jocasta being really great against, you know, some of these tankier teams, keep your team healthy, provide the immunity, as well as invincible, cleansing. She does it all. She's a great hero. Kaysen, absolutely terrible. He's even bad in PvE. Karma, this is another one where she is definitely an A. Fantastic pick. You can pick her even if your enemy did not have any kind of control effect. She can one-shot some extremely tanky heroes. I have the ability with my Karma to one-shot like Shark Solandres and things like that with her S3. It's great. Fantastic hero. She still has her counters, which I think is good. But at the same time, just a really strong pick overall. Great addition to the meta. Light Nick, I think, is a pretty strong pick nowadays. You know, you do have some squishier heroes in the meta. His invincibility is still fairly relevant. The thing is, you know, people like Garnet, people like, you know, Shark Solandre used to be real menaces to Light Nick and Dark Nick. But with the introduction of Adeline, Shark Solandre has gotten worse. Garnet has just progressively gotten worse with the introduction of new, better Light and Darks, as well as faster red, green, blue heroes. So Light Nick has actually risen because of the reduction in power of his direct counters. So really nice LD. It's funny how he is one of the OG LDs, and he's still really relevant in today's meta. So Lydia used to be really, really strong, but she has definitely fallen off. She's not really good anymore. I highly advise no one use her. This one pains me, but yes, I don't believe Levi is good anymore. I miss this guy, but he is way too RNG. I guess you could probably put him in D. You know, he's not absolutely terrible, but he is just, you are hoping and praying every time that he procs his counterattack and he does 5 times damage on his ultimate. So I wouldn't say he's a really strong pick. So Lyerly, I think, is more of a PvE hero nowadays. There was some potential with the taunts and stuff back in the day where Aurea was extremely strong, which I think Aurea is actually still pretty strong. But yeah, her trait to joint attack when someone is taunted is just really extremely situational. So I wouldn't say that you should be picking her in RTA at all. So Maeve is a PvE hero. You should not be picking her in RTA or Arena. Same thing with Maratome. Same thing with Matson. Morrison. Now this guy, I do think he's more of a PvE hero. His potential to do True Strike up to 100%, well, I don't know, close to 83 or 84% in PvP is interesting, but I don't know anybody that has him full booked A5 that has him built right or anything like that to see if he's actually that good. I would assume he's not. He might be a D pick, but just for time's sake, we're going to put him in the F. So Mikasa, another Attack on Titan hero. I do think that she is a PvE hero. Muriel has her applications, I think, in PvP, and that's probably going to come from like arena offense or something like that, but I would borderline that she's still an F. Mulhex, definitely an F, terrible. Mathasia, Mathasia just has way too many counters, but I still think she can be an okay pick, depending on, who your enemies are picking. If they go with, just an LD team with, some water damage dealers, a well-built Mathasia can still be a problem, but as you see here, there's just a lot of heroes in the green and red area that deal with her nowadays, where I don't think she's as strong of a pick as she used to be. So Derek, he is another one of the S's. He is just, I just don't understand what they were thinking with this hero. He's so poorly designed, in my opinion. He's a cheat code everywhere in the game. It's pretty dumb, but yeah, counterattacks, getting the ability to jump in front of the highest attack hero, which tends to be the fastest hero from time to time as well. Can't really get around his unkillable, with things like Shark Solandre or Borden or anything like that. So I don't know. He's just unfair and definitely an S pick for sure. Opal is definitely a PvE hero. So Nero, I would say, is maybe a C pick. He's very strong against, heroes like Alicia and Rosalie, but he has, some direct counters with Jerome, which is just terrible pick for him. Adeline has the ability to really nullify him. Alicia can one-shot him. Guan Yu probably has the ability to deal with Nero fairly well. And then Elise also has the ability to just crush him along with Cordelia. But he is strong against fire heroes. So he's good against Karma, he's good against Alicia, and he's definitely good against Rosalie. So I wouldn't say he's a bad pick. He's definitely more along the lines of, a more niche pick for sure. Poros is just PvE. Light Ophelia, another one of the S's. If she gets to take her turn, where she ults, puts counterattack on everybody, and then has the ability to have someone mimic their attack. Like if she puts that on an Oderic or a Divine Yolanda or anything like that, it's just really unfair. The heals are nuts. She's pretty tanky. Just never, ever a bad pick. And if she gets to take her turn, you probably lost. So Naya, I've heard so many good things, like through the grapevine. Any kind of hero that has a guard set or puts up shield, if she's A5, has the potential to one-shot them. I've heard that she can one-shot a Vengeful Hassle. I haven't seen it, but I've heard it. So for now, just with the lack of experience with her, I have seen her in some settings in Arena where she does really good damage, and she does have Defense Pierce very similar to Jerome and Alicia, but the water version of it. I think she's actually she's obviously not as good as these heroes because she doesn't have the speed. But I will say that she probably has potential and is mostly more along the lines of a C pick than a D. But because of the lack of knowledge, I am going to slot her in at D. So Rick is another one that's probably an A, but I don't have as much experience with him. But if he is A5 full booked, this hero is just a complete menace. He deals with so many problem heroes. Another thing that people don't realize is he starts with stealth, right? But the stealth is not a buff. It's weird. So Divine Yolanda has the ability to target heroes that are in stealth, but she can't target Rick. It's probably a bug, but it hasn't been fixed forever. So I don't know. Maybe it's working as intended. But he has the ability to do additional damage, ignore tons of defense, and not be targeted by most of the meta, because as I mentioned earlier in the video, people aren't doing AoE anymore, you know? So he just goes unchecked, and if he kills somebody with his ultimate, or the person that has his little mark of doom on them dies, he refreshes his ultimate. Really great hero. I would love to build him one day, but sadly, you know, I'm trying to be efficient in my resources and things like that, so he's, you know, on the list, but a little further down the line. But fantastic hero, borderline A hero, but for now, I'm just going to put him at B. So Rachel, I think, probably has some application in PvP, but she's just a really good PvE character. Shane, I think Shane can actually be really, really strong, you know, granting so much damage potential, and if he's Ascended 5, he will keep your heroes alive if they're about to die one time during the match. So he can be a really good counter to Guan Yu. He can be a really good counter to Divine Yolanda. He can be a decent counter to Oderic. You know, when Oderic is trying to one-shot maybe one of the heroes that has potential to counter him. So Shane can be really, really strong, but it comes with the caveat of needing A5. So Seema, man, Seema used to be so good, but they just had to nerf her, which really sucks. But, you know, she has the potential to be Karma-esque, just nowhere near as good. But she can do some decent damage. I think if she's Ascended 5 full booked, she's a pretty decent pick in PvP. But the problem is that would be a real waste of your resources, because there's a lot of people that just do her job better from a PvE setting and from a PvP setting. But I wouldn't say she's an F. Pluto, definitely an F. He's a PvE hero and also a bad one at that. Rosalie, another pretty solid pick. She's really good against people like Alicia. If Alicia needs to target someone else, there are some Alicias out there that can definitely one-shot a Rosalie before she even gets to counterattack. But she's really good against Fire Melisa, which has become a more prevalent pick in the meta. She's good against some of these other green heroes as well. So I think she's still a really solid pick in the meta. And if she goes unchecked again, she can be an issue. So Ralph used to be amazing with damage mitigation. He's actually pretty good in guild versus guild still, with the damage reduction buff that is given to the defensive team. I think he's still a great defensive character. Still pretty good defensive hero for arena defense as well. But with the introduction of Karma, he's definitely gone down in value. So that is a bit of a bummer. But he is one of those heroes that, if picked correctly, he can completely just take over the game. So Ralph is still really strong, but definitely not an S tier hero where he used to be probably, 6 months ago. Taliesin I don't think is useful at all, basically anywhere in the game. Savannah, I have heard, is a pretty good counter to Oderic, because she will have the highest attack and she's most likely going to die easily. But I would say that is an extremely niche pick. She's mainly going to be built really slow for PvE content, and I don't know if people are going to want to switch back and forth between their gear. So we'll put her at D, just with the fact that people have been saying that she's pretty good against Oderic. I have not had the stones yet to test that, so we will put her at D. Tashir is another one that I think is probably a D. You know, I know Twitchy has her fully booked and things like that, so the damage mitigation I think is there. She has the potential to remove some buffs and also speed your team up, but it's weird. Like, speed is important in the meta, but it's also one of those things that it's not like if you outspeed, you auto win. So I would say her applications are kind of limited. Sirius is another one that I think has some potential. She's very fast, so I would think if she's booked, she probably has the ability to one-shot heroes like Guan Yu, Elise, and Cordelia. Maybe even Jerome, but I think people like Fire Melisa end up doing her job better than she does, and you don't have to waste legendary books. So I will put her at an F, but I would say if they keep introducing strong green heroes, and Fire Melisas are getting banned, or Alicias are getting banned, she might be an okay pick from that regard. But, I mean, let's be real. Are you really going to put books into Cirrus? Probably not. So Shark Solandre, I think, is still a really good pick, but he does have some decent counters nowadays. Adeline just completely nullifies him, for sure. Cordelia can 100% nullify him. You have Karma that can one-shot him. You have Elise that can knock him out of the turn order. If he has a little bit of damage on him, Alicia has the ability to one-shot him as well. Doomweaver Valeria, all these different types of heroes. Still extremely, extremely strong hero. But again, he has like direct counters that make him completely useless. So I will put him at B. He's, he may be borderline A, but to me, he's not the safest pick anymore for me. I think this one is probably another one that people might contest. And I'm already kind of talking my way out of it, but for sake of length of the video, we'll keep him at B here and move on. So Therese is another one that I think he's fallen off, similar to Kasim. There's just not enough AoE in the game. He's somewhat easy to counter. People like Guan Yu, Cordelia, Elise, Jerome, they're just going to eat him up. So, yeah, he's basically an F. Urian, another F, which is such a pain in the butt. His damage just isn't there. And even with his buff with the elemental advantage, he's too slow, doesn't do enough damage. You have tons of other people that are way better than him. So, yeah, sadly, he's got to sit there. Valeria, not very good. Tia, actually okay. Tia is pretty quick. With the introduction of Tidecaller, I think she pairs well with him. But again, it's one of those niche picks where you have to have the right support around her for her to really shine. So definitely a D is where she sits, but not an F. Vengeful Hassle. He is part of the Power 5. I've mentioned this in other videos, and they are definitely the S tier. So much damage mitigation at the beginning of the first round. He has high resistance. He has a toxic ultimate ability that gets reduced if your heroes die, where he brings everyone back, puts up death immunity. Just a really dumb character. He has the ability to cheese in PvE as well, but from PvP setting, these top 5 heroes are definitely cream of the crop. No real counters. Bocce used to be able to one-shot him. Can't really do it anymore. And then, he also has a pretty toxic Ascension 2 where he nullifies his death, similar to Divine Yolanda. He doesn't heal, which is good because that'd be way too strong. But, yep, definitely top 5 hero in the game from a PvP setting. Thor's pretty good. I would say, a well-built Thor can actually do some pretty good damage. He 100% has his counters. There are people like Elise and Cordelia that just completely crush him. But with that being said, I think he is still pretty strong against the Rosalie, Alicia, Fire Melisa, Karma picks. So he's still very strong, but he does take a lot of investment. Probably needs A5, and he's just a PvP hero, but definitely one of the stronger ones for sure. So Yolanda does have some application. She does put up the invincibility. She gives a bonus turn, things like that, which can actually be a downside. But with her speed, I would say that she is an okay pick from time to time. Not worth the resources, but if you wasted resources into her, she's still somewhat viable from time to time. Zoltan, really strong pick. If he is Ascended 2, he gets way better, obviously, because he has the ability to give himself lifesteal. But even with Ascension 0, if he goes unchecked and people don't respect the Zoltan, he can definitely take over a game. So he's a B pick for sure. If he has multiple Ascensions, he can climb up the tier list pretty quick. Actually, yeah, we need to put him at C. He's very strong, but similar to like Bran the Brilliant, similar to Dark Nick, he needs Ascensions to be good, you know, like a top tier pick. And then Zitlin is a PvE hero, a very good one, but not PvP. So that is my tier list, guys, for PvP for legendaries. I didn't say that at the beginning of the video, so if you stuck around long enough, now you know. Okay, the epic one we'll be making here, you know, shortly. I won't say tomorrow or the next day because this takes a while to do, but I hope you enjoyed this long form video with some explanations and a tier list. Again, just my opinion, but that's all I got for you today. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you on the next one. See ya.